your tutorial. Just to start off, I wanted to show you there is a top bar up here when you open Photoshop where you will see File, Edit, Image, Layer, Type, Select, Filter, 3D, View, Plugins, Window, and Help. The ones that we will be going over is the File, Save As. We will go over Edit, and that will take you down to Transform, which is right here. You'll be able to click on it when you have your image selected with your marquee tool. We will go through Image Rotation and Image Size. We will go over to Filter and look at the noise and reduce noise. We'll also go over some of the other options such as stylize, pixelate, and then we'll also have the view, the zoom in, and the zoom out. In the screen recording of the full tutorial, you could not see this top bar, so I'm just adding this in the beginning so that you understand that when you open up your Photoshop, when I'm telling you to go to view, when I'm telling you to go to image or edit or file, those are all up here at the very top bar where you see Photoshop, and then you'll see all those options. All right, and now we will get started on our tutorial. Hello, and welcome to your tutorial on how to use Photoshop to edit a photo of one of your paintings or prints or whatever it might be. Basically, what we're going to cover in this is how to crop it, fit it into the right proportions, the right resolution, and the right color balance for what you're looking for. So first we open up Photoshop, and you're going to go over to the left. I'm using Photoshop 2022 Adobe. So you go to Open. You're going to click into your downloads. So after you take your picture of your painting, put it in a certain folder or upload it to your computer in your downloads folder. So when you go in, you open that file, you know where to find it. So I'm going to be working on this mountainscape sunrise picture. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to click Open. That's going to open it up in Photoshop. So just to show you a few things, I'm using a MacBook, so I'm able to zoom in and out by putting two fingers on my like touch mouse pad thing and just scooting my fingers out in different directions. That zooms in, and then if I pull my fingers back together, it zooms out. If you don't have that option, you can also go to View, Zoom in, or View, Zoom out. You can also see these little shortcuts over here, which would be your Command key minus or your Command key plus. So those are just to show you how to zoom in and zoom out. So to begin, we want to crop our picture into where it's just the picture of our painting. So we're cropping out anything on the border that we don't want in there. I like to start by cropping it as close to the picture as I can. So we're going to go over here to the marquee tool, and we are going to just select the whole picture. Go to Image, Crop. At that point, you can pull in these corners and get it as close to the image as you want. As you can see on this, if you look down at the bottom, you'll see this left corner and you'll see the right corner. I don't want to pull it up. Oops, I clicked out. Let me go back, Image, Crop. I don't want to go, oh, I keep clicking out. Well, I can just select it down here too. So when you're cropping this, I don't want to pull this up to this corner or I'll crop off this corner. So you want to go to your most outer edge, and then we're gonna take care of this section on the next step. So this side needs to come out a little bit to about right there. So I get this corner, and this needs to come out a little bit so I get that bottom corner. It looks like I'm just dragging this box over. So yeah, so you can drag this box around as well. Click here to pull it out. Well, see, now I'm just dragging it around. I'm just gonna click out. I'm gonna go back to this outer corner. I'm going to click it to select it. And as you can see, I'm cutting off that top corner a little bit, so I'm just going to start back at the very beginning. Sorry guys. So you can also like start with your outer edge, which is this one. This is the one that's highest. This is the one that's lowest. So I can start at this higher corner, maybe give myself a little space. Select the whole thing, make sure I'm getting all my corners in there. Go back to image, crop, there. Now we've cropped it to where there's only a little bit on each outer edge. So this is the next step. You can just go straight to this second step I'm about to show you right now, but I typically like to start with cropping the majority of the outside out first. So now we're going to go to edit. First of all, make sure it's selected. If it's not selected and you don't see this dotted line here, if it looks like that, you want to go back to your marquee tool and you want to reselect that whole thing. Then you're going to go to edit, transform, skew. Just to show you something real quick before we do this, I'm just gonna X out of that. If your image is rotated, say it looks like this when you pull it up, then you want to go ahead and select that, go to image, image rotation, and go ahead and turn it whichever way to where it's facing up. Mine came in the right side up, so we skipped that step, but there is that step if you need to do that. Okay, so going back to selecting, I'm going to go to edit, transform, skew. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull these corners out, and as you can see, it's skewing the image so that each corner is being pulled at a time. And this is why it helps cropping it as close as you can to begin with, because you don't have to skew it as far. Pull the sides and just keep taking it out more until you get each corner where you want it to be. That looks about right for my photo. It's cutting off a bit of my name, so I might want to just see what it looks like if I bring it up some. There we go. And you can just keep playing around with this until you get it right. If you need to zoom in, go to view, zoom in, and I'm going to zoom in more using my mouse pad. And what I'm doing is I'm just checking all the sides, I'm checking all the corners. Sometimes it's hard to see from far away if you're getting all of those corners exactly how you want to. Like it might be in like the tiniest bit like that. So that's why it's important to zoom in. And then zoom back out. Just make sure you have it all how you like it. And then just press this check up here, which is going to make it permanent. So there we have our picture now cropped to just the picture. Using this step where you go to edit and you transform and you skew it, what it's doing is it's allowing you to crop exactly to the picture. Sometimes when you take a picture of your painting, it might be the tiniest bit off to where you can't just use the regular crop square or rectangle. So that's what this step is allowing you to do. For me, it's one of the most important steps of getting my paintings into prints. The other important step is color balance. So when I take a picture of my painting, the best lighting for me to take that picture is going to be outside while the sun is out, not in direct sun, but to where the light is hitting the painting. I want to make sure there's no shadows on it from any leaves or other objects around. And I'm also trying to get a picture of it where there's not a heavy glare on the picture. That's going to give you the easiest process when you come to adjusting your color balance, because you won't have to worry about a huge corner of your picture having high highlight glare and the other part being in shadow. You want it as even as possible with the light hitting the painting as you're taking the picture. So for going to color balance, I love to do this process when I still have the original available. That way I can put the original beside me while I'm editing my pictures so that I can get the colors as close as possible. I like to do this even outdoors. That allows me to get the truest color as well. Like the same place where I took the picture is where I like to do the editing if possible. That way I'm not taking the painting into a room that maybe has yellow lights or red lights or makes the painting actually look different than it would in the true sunlight, its true color form. So if you can't do that, that's okay, but it really is nice to have the original beside you. If you don't have the original beside you, just edit the picture as best you can to your liking, based on either your memory of the original or just what you think will look good in the print. You also can edit these pictures to be drastically different if you want to. That will give you a variation of prints looking differently, so that's another option. Alright, so going into the color balance, we are going to highlight our picture again, or select it, using our tool here, the marquee tool right there. Now we're going to go to Image, Adjustments. I typically like to start with Vibrance, and I usually am bringing the vibrance up. I will bring it up a lot sometimes. I'll take it down, I'll look at the difference, I'll take it back to 0, and then I'll bring it up again. I don't want the saturation too high to where it gets away from what it looks like in its original form, so sometimes I'll take that saturation down a tiny bit. I feel like vibrance just gives the overall painting a little more saturation, a little more vibrancy. It brings out the richness of the colors a little bit more. So I typically start there. Sometimes that gives me what I need and I'm done with it. Other times I need to go in and mess around with the brightness. Sometimes I'll bring the brightness up, and I'll bring the contrast up as well. Sometimes that's too bright and I need to bring it back down. So you can just play around with this to see what it is that you're looking for in your piece. I find myself a lot of the time going way up, way down, going back to the middle, going up a little bit, down a little bit, and just playing around with that so that my eye can see what it really wants for the picture. For this particular picture, I think this brightness is too high. I think it washes out some of my deep oranges that I really like in this picture. When I bring it back down to 0, I do feel like that's a little low. So I'm just going to take the brightness up a tiny bit. I might take my contrast back down a little bit. Okay. Another editing that I like to do is levels. Is color balance. So a lot of times with my highlights, I find that my highlights are looking too yellow, like the whites in my picture may come printed out too yellow. When that happens, I like to come in here on color balance, click over here on highlights so that I'm just paying attention to the highlights, and I take my highlights to a little bit more of the blue scale than the yellow scale. As far as the pink and the green goes, you can see how messing around with it changes it. I typically keep that around 0. It depends on where I took my picture. If I took a picture of my painting in a room with a bunch of yellow lighting, I'm going to be doing a lot more editing on this part to try and get my highlights true white. It also helps to zoom in. So you see if I go over to the red, it turns the highlights kind of pink. If I go over to the blue, see how they get a little whiter. So I typically like to take my highlights over into the blue realm on the 2 options where it can go blue, and that usually makes my whites a little whiter, and that's because of like the yellow reflections that can sometimes happen in rooms and things like that when you're taking your picture. Again, it can also help to zoom in so that when you're doing this editing, go back to color balance, you can really see what the difference is and how that's affecting your bright highlights. So I'm going to zoom back out, get an overall view of it. This image looks pretty good. I might do one more example, just because this picture I took in really great lighting to where I didn't really need to do much editing on it. So I'm going to find another picture that takes a little more work on editing, and it'll just give you a second go around on some of the color balance things, and I'll find one that has more of a drastic change. So this might be all for this one that I'm going to show you on this example. You also want to make sure that the brightness on your computer is turned to the correct brightness. You don't want it super dark. Sometimes you don't want to add its full brightness either. You want it like down a little bit. I'm still doing more research on that as well, like where exactly should your brightness on your computer be set. You might want to look that up on Google. You can just type in, while editing my photos on Photoshop, where should I set the brightness to my computer? You want to make sure that you have that brightness set at the right point, because if you have it set super duper bright, and when you're editing it, that's going to make your overall image, your final image, look different than if you had your brightness set really low and you're editing it to get it where you want it. So you want to make sure that you're editing your image to the true color form that it will be printed out in. Printing companies print images differently as well. It helps to get a couple first samples from different companies before you order in bulk. I highly suggest that. Sometimes their printing will come out a little darker than you thought it was going to be. If that happens, then when you're editing, you would want to make your pictures a little brighter to compensate for their printing being a little darker. So I really like to order a sample, or just like a one-off of a picture, see how it comes out from that company, see if I like their quality. If I like their quality and the picture just came out a little dark, then I want to make sure that I do my editing a little brighter so that when it comes out the next time, it'll compensate for that difference in brightness and contrast. Another really, really important step for this is making sure that your resolution is at a high resolution. A lot of companies do not take a file that is super duper large when you're ordering it online, just because their system can't handle that file that's so large. So sometimes when they have their little part that says upload a file, they'll put a maximum amount for that file. So you want to pay attention to that too, and make sure that whatever you're sizing your file fits within their range. So this is where you do that. You select your whole image. You're going to go to image and image size. So here you can see the resolution is 72. If I were to print this at 72 resolution, it would maybe come out looking pretty pixelated or fuzzy. So I always want my resolution to be at 300. And I want my width and height. What I typically do is I set those for what I'm printing them at. So if I am printing a print that is 16 by 20, that is what I'll set my width and height, 16 by 20 at resolution 300, and I'll save it there. And this is the file that I will save and upload into the company's place where you order the prints, and I will pick this one for the 16 by 20 print that I'm ordering. If I'm ordering a print that is 30 by 40, I want to go in here and I want to save this for 30 by 40. As you will see, depending on how you size this, it may skew your image. Like it may stretch it up, it may stretch it out. That may be something that you are okay with or not okay with. If you're not okay with it stretching out your photo, you may have to crop off some of the top, or crop off some of the bottom, or crop off some of the side to make it fit within the size that you're looking for. So say if I wanted to crop this to a square, and I don't want it to be a rectangle, I can either go in here and I can say, okay, I want this to be 30 by 30. So see how it skews it and pushes it down? Honestly, with this picture, I would be okay with it. I think it still looks fine. A lot of times when it's portraits or, you know, something that is just going to look weird if it is stretched a certain way, then I'll need to go in and I'll need to crop it. So I'm just going to do edit, undo image size. That takes it back to where it was. Say I need to crop this into a square. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to select something that I feel is pretty close to a square that I feel would be okay for my image. Say I pick right there. Maybe I want to move it up some or down some. I want some of the clouds in it, but I want the bottom of my trees. So I'm going to go right there. Then I can go image crop. I'm going to do undo. I'm going to go back. I'm going to make it include a little more clouds, a little more trees. I'll make it as close to a square as I think I can. Then I'm going to go image crop. Okay, now I can go to image size and see I'm a little bit off. It's not a perfect square. You can see it's 30 by 29.167. So I'm just going to go in and do 30 by 30. Also, by the way, if you click this right here, it links it. So if I link this and I change this to 40, it's going to change this to 41 up here automatically because it's linking what the original was, and whatever you change this to, it's going to change this to stay within the measurements that you originally set it at. If I unlink it, that is where I can go in and put whatever I want, and that's when it's going to skew the image depending on what you put in here. So now if I do 30 by 30, now I get my perfect square. It doesn't skew the image too much. For me personally, if I were going to do this, I feel like these little spots are out of place. This is where I'm going to show you another cool tool that I do sometimes for my prints. I'm going to zoom in. I'm just using my keypad to zoom in. Again, you can go to view, zoom in, or take the shortcut of doing command and the plus sign. You can also always go to Google and say, what's a shortcut to zoom in on Photoshop using a MacBook or using whatever kind of computer you are using, and it will show you that. Okay, so this is called the clone stamp tool. I use this a lot if there are spots in my picture that are bothering me that I don't want there, or I want to change a little bit. So if you look up at the top left, I'm going here and I'm wanting to take care of these dots. I can see my tool is way too small for that, so I'm going to go to size and I'm just going to make my tool circle larger. I'm wanting to cover up these two little dots that are right here and this little triangle that's right here. So I'm going to make my tool a little bit larger so that it will cover up that entire space. Okay. If you have never used the clone tool, you can always just hold your mouse over it and this will pop up it should pop up where it says learn more. Again, I'm using Photoshop 2022 Adobe. If you're not using that same year, it may look different on yours, but this is how it looks on mine, so it's really the only way I know how to tell you how to do it right now. This is what I'm using. So we'll go to learn more. This takes you through just like a little demo of how to use it. So it's telling you to select the clone stamp tool. You're going to use the options bar to customize tool settings like size, hardness, and blending mode to get the effect you need. So that's what I just did up there where I changed the size. So you're going to press the Alt key on Windows or the Option key on Mac and click the area of the image that you want to copy. I'm going to show you that. This sets the starting point from which the tool will begin copying. So basically, like, you're saying this is the spot that I want to clone, and then you're going to release the Option key. Well, when you press the Option key and you pick the space you want to clone, you're going to click on it. Then you're going to release the Option key and you're going to drag your mouse over to the area that you want to replace with your cloned spot. So release the Alt or Option key and drag over the new area where you want to place your copied content. The clone stamp will copy content from the source and paint it into the new area. This little demo, you can usually find these on each one as well so that you can learn more on each thing. It's kind of like a little tutorial on how to work all these things. Okay, so we're going to the clone stamp tool. I am going to put this over this area that I want to clone. I'm going to hold down Option and see how it changes the tool to this little target looking thing. So now I'm going to click that spot and then I'm going to let go of the Option tool. I'm going to drag it over and see how it covers this up. Yep. So I'm just cloning that area over there. Now, if I just continue to drag it over here, see, it's still cloning the same distance that you copied before, if that makes sense. So like when I press the Option tool, since I clicked it here in the beginning and then I'm bringing it over here, what it's doing is it's cloning that same distance, which is about an inch away or so. So I may need to re-click my area that I want to clone. And click, I'm cloning it over here. It's basically just covering that up with the same stuff over here. Same thing over here. Pressing Option, click, that's the part I want to drag over. When I click on the spot that I want to clone, if I hold it down, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that little plus symbol. That's showing you the part that it's cloning. So like within the circle, that's showing you the area that you're covering up, and when you hold it down, the little plus that pops up, that's showing you the area that it's cloning. So like I said, like it's that much distance away. So if I were to like clone this, say I want to clone this up here and I want to pull it over here, as I move over, you see how that little plus mark moves too? So that's what it's going to clone, is whatever that plus mark is touching. So that gives you an idea of that. All right, I'm just going to go and undo all those pieces I just did. I'm going to hold down Command and Z just to make that shortcut a little faster. Undo. Okay. I still have a little spot down here that I'd like to get rid of. And this is a great thing if you're cropping your picture and then pieces of it just don't really work out the way you want it to. It's easy to just cover them up real quick. I also do this sometimes if I find there is texture on my painting that just doesn't quite look right in my print form, in the digital form. So I will go and take out some highlights or take out some of the texture by cloning them out. Also, sometimes on the edges there'll be a little scratch mark or something that shows up in the digital form that I don't really like, or maybe a speck of paint that splattered on it that I'd rather cover up. For example, see this little spot right here? It's probably a speck of paint that splattered from one of my other pieces, so I might want to cover that up. I might want to cover this up. This is a little big for covering this up, so I am going to go and I'm going to change my size. Option, and then drag it over, cover it up. And I'm just zooming around to see if there's any other spots. The rest looks pretty good. And there we go. Now I've cropped my piece to be a 8x8. So say I want to keep this size, I want to keep this resolution, I might go back and just check one more time. Image size, 30x30, 300 resolution. Okay, great. Now I want to go and I want to save it. I'm going to save it on my computer. You can save it wherever you want, downloads, maybe make a new folder. I've made a folder that says Jade Art Prints. That means, for me, that means it is pictures that I have already edited and I'm putting into this folder that are ready to order from the company. So typically I'll have a folder that says prints that need to be edited, and I'll have a folder that is prints that are already edited. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to save it as JPEG. I want to title this for these purposes. Right now I'm just going to say Mountain Sunrise. Save. I like to set the quality at high, small file, large file, so you can change this around a little bit if you need the file size to be a little smaller. If, say, when you are trying to upload it to the company, they say the file's too big, you could try making it a little smaller. I typically keep mine around 8. I'm going to say OK, and then that saves your piece. So to show you a little bit about how you can make these colors extremely different, when you go over to this color balance, like, you could mess around with these a lot if you wanted to. And this could be a whole new print, or this could be a whole new print, or this could be a whole new print. So you could really make this into as many things as you want. You can also go to brightness and contrast and make something really bright. I mean, you can play around with your images as much as you want. There's also this cool filter tab. It does a whole lot of other things too. Like, you can go here and you can pixelate it and make it a mosaic. I haven't done too much of this, but you can see it gives you a little preview of what it looks like. This could be a fun thing to play around with if, like, say you're wanting to make a mosaic of a certain painting. You may go in here and put this filter on it, so then you can now see what tiles you need to buy, or let's see some other things that you might be able to do. Oh, I'll show you one thing that I do use a filter for on my editing my prints. Sometimes when I am printing, I need to take the noise down on a little bit. So I will go in here and I will reduce the noise. And let me show you what that does. Basically, it smooths it out a little bit. So if I am going, sometimes I want to keep the details more sharpened, but typically I preserve maybe like a tiny bit of details, sharpen details a tiny bit. This is usually the setting I use. Reduce color noise, put it pretty high, and if I show you what this does, it smooths things out a little bit. If I zoom in, it's a little easier to see what it does, and on some photos you can see how it changes it. So there you can see how it was. That's what the reduced noise does. So it just kind of smooths things out a bit, makes things a little less sharp, which I like on some pictures, I don't like on other ones, so it just depends. And if you do that filter and you want to do it even more, you can always come back in and do it again, and either that will double it, and if it doesn't, then you can save it and then reopen it and then do the filter again. But I think it actually did double it. Yeah, so that's how it was in the beginning. That's with one reduced noise, and that's with 2 reduced noises. So you could go in there and do that as much as you want, and it just makes it look a little smoother in some areas. There's lots of filters on here that you can play around with. Stylize, you can make it look completely different. I mean, this is an oil paint filter. Didn't change it too much with this one, but it might with another photo. If we zoom in, you can see it does change it quite a bit. Let's undo it, redo it. So there's lots of things you can mess around with on here. I'm going to just undo that oil paint, and I've already saved this. If I want to go in and undo a lot of different things that I've already done, I'm just pressing Command Z. It may have a limit on it for how many times you can undo it. I'm not really sure what that limit is. I was just trying to go back to where I had my rectangle because I would like to save that as the rectangle. I'm going to go in and I'm going to take my size to 16 by 20 and I'm going to save it there. If I wanted to take this I kind of want to take this brightness up a little bit. Sometimes it does print a little darker for me, so I like to take my brightness up a tad. And just keeping this vibrance to where I like my blues, rich how they are in the painting. Alright. And I like it right there. I think that looks pretty close to the original, so I'm going to save that. Save it on my computer. Since I already have one saved as Mountain Sunrise at 8x8, I'm going to just go in here and I'm going to say this is a 16 by 20. I'm going to save it in the same place, which is my finished print, so that I know it's ready to go. Save. And I can always just double check to make sure I have my resolution at 300. Alright, so that is the first example on how to edit these paintings into prints or drawings into prints or whatever it might be that you're taking a picture of. I hope this has helped, and I will be doing one more example that may show you a little bit more of a difference in editing, and yeah, I'll upload that as a second little video. I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, just either send them to me in like a little email bullet point, and I will answer as many as I can. All right, good luck. Happy editing. Bye.